What's up, superstars? On today's video, we're gonna talk about how to create professional looking t-shirts using DTF. We're gonna talk about tips, tricks, mistakes, and lessons we learned along the way. And as always, guys, if you guys need any transfer needs or UV transfer needs, make sure you guys give us the opportunity to earn your business. That's transfersuperstars.com. Now let's go get into it. Now, when it comes to DTF, there's gonna be three major elements that you wanna pay attention to. That's gonna be time, temperature, and pressure. You wanna make sure that all these three things are dialed in order to ensure that you're gonna get the perfect DTF. Now, you wanna also make sure that you're following your instructions from your supplier. We have instructions on our packages along with video instructions in case you need to follow, but you wanna make sure you're following the right instructions because every DTF printer is gonna be a little bit different. But in this video, we're gonna talk about our transfers. So we're gonna talk about basic heat press setups. So we don't recommend using a Cricut or an iron or a non-air pneumatic heat press, for example, like this HTV Ron. You can get by, it can press on a t-shirt, but you're not gonna have the professional results because these items do lack pressure, and that's one of the key main elements that's needed with DTF transfers. So for this particular demonstration, we're gonna be using our 16 by 20 Prisma heat press. I'm just gonna talk about a little bit about this heat press since we're gonna be using this as a demo. This heat press have an auto open release, so if you're pressing it, it does automatically release, so it makes things a lot easier to use after the countdown timer's on. It does have a very, very smooth slide out, and most important, it has a digital pressure gauge right here that will read how much pressure is on there. So it's showing as a 7, 8, so I can even press it, 9. So again, guys, it will adjust based off the amount of pressure, so it takes out all the guesswork. So this is the heat press that we're gonna be using as our demonstration today. Now let's talk about time. Now we press our transfers at only 7 seconds. We recommend a 3-second pre-press, 7-second press, and another 7-second as a finishing press. Our transfers have a very low melting point, so it doesn't need to be pressed for a very long time, so productivity is gonna be very quick. And the beauty about our transfers, it can be peeled both hot and cold. So you can do small items or you can do large items like a pop-up canopy. It's all available with our transfers. Now let's talk temperature. Now we press our transfers between 275 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. We typically do our cottons, for example, like this at 300 degrees. Now, if you're dealing with nylons or heavy polyesters, this is a nylon fabric. We recommend lowering the temperature to 275. You can start low and increase it if you need to. With our 7-second press and low melting point, you have a very rare chance of it scorching the item. So any sensitive materials like this, again, we recommend doing it at 275 and starting from there. This one is 100% polyester as well. 275, 7 seconds, second press as well. Now also when it comes to temperature, you want to make sure that you test your heat press. So if you're setting your heat press at 300, you want to make sure you test all the elements on the heat press to make sure that everything is nice and even and that you're getting adequate heat all around. If not, you're going to have to adjust the temperature to accommodate for that. But with our heat press, you also want to make sure that you are testing without the Teflon sheet because it does make a huge difference. And when I say about testing, you want to make sure that the arrow is aligned and you want to go through every quadrant of the heat press, making sure that the lasers are aligned, and then you're gonna read the meter readings for every single one to make sure that all your temperature is adequate and is right for your DTF transfers. So we'll have a link below for the infrared gun, and make sure you guys take this with a grain of salt because sometimes I have seen coating on the heat press and that will change the way that the infrared is picking up temperature. So keep that in mind. This is going to be a helpful test, but not the most accurate test. We're gonna talk about pressure. Now pressure is one of the most important factors when it comes to heat pressing DTF. You wanna make sure that you're using heavy pressure. You wanna make sure that you're embedding that DTF transfer into the t-shirt. Now, when it comes to adjusting your heat press, most of the time heat presses, you're spinning righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So righty-tighty is to make it more tight, lefty is to make it looser. Now there are times where your heat press is built a little bit different. We have a geonite heat press. We have to do it the opposite way. So instead of righty-tighty in this particular case, it's actually going left to tighten it up. So you want to make sure that you understand your heat press, check it out, because I've seen customers constantly try to dial it down and it's constantly still loose. So make sure you're starting from there. And how do you know if you have good enough pressure? There's a dollar bill test as well. We use this to test out pressure. We lay this around the heat press. We're gonna show you guys that later on, but that is also a way to test your heat press to make sure that all the sides have adequate pressure. Now, when it comes to pressing on DTF, if you don't have enough pressure, this is what happens, guys. The shirt already washed, so when it washes, the shirt normally wrinkles, and if you don't have enough pressure, you have premature wrinkling like this. So this was actually a shirt that Matt tested out using the Planet Flame heat press. We did a wash test and it just doesn't have enough pressure, and this is the result of it. And of course that will increase over time. The wrinkle will increase over time and will get worse and worse. So the main thing is, guys, don't cut corners. Make sure that you're using a heat press that has adequate pressure, no crickets, no irons. Make sure you're using a heat press. So pre-pressing garments, is it a myth? Do you really need to do it? We actually recommend pre-pressing for 3 seconds. That gets rid of all the moisture, and it also removes any wrinkles that you might have on the t-shirt. The last thing that you want to do is heat press a transfer over a wrinkle and cause it to tear or cause a little bubble on it. So definitely pre-press. The other reason why you want to pre-press is to remove the moisture that's been in the garment. Certain garments absorb more moisture, certain garments have no moisture. But getting rid of the moisture ensures that your transfer is going to be adhering onto a dry surface, and of course that's going to result in a longer lasting t-shirt. So again, we pre-press for 3 seconds. Most of the time you see on the videos, we're not pre-pressing because we're doing it for the video. No one wants to see a boring scene like that. But again, 3 seconds is all you need. In our heat press, we have it set for 7 seconds, but if we're pre-pressing for 3 seconds, we can just go ahead and press that auto release afterwards, and it's done. There's a little bit of steam that goes above this, but there wasn't much in this particular fabric. So again, guys, pre-pressing, yeah, we recommend it. Now let's go and talk about alignment. Now when it comes to DTF, you're gonna have to align the shirt, and you're also gonna be aligning the transfer onto the shirt. Now when it comes to heat presses, it is definitely a lot easier if you're able to use a 16 by 20 like this versus a 15 by 15 heat press like this. Of course, this is going to be more expensive, but this is the way that screen printers normally load t-shirts, and it is a lot easier to load and align, and I'm going to show you guys why. So let's take a look at this shirt. This is, for example, a Bella Canvas 3001. Just like majority of shirts, you do not the seams on the side, but it is sewn on the side here, and this is going to give you basically the midpoint of the shirt. So once you have the shirt threaded and loaded here, most of the time a screen printer will use his fingers, and if you're wondering what he's doing going up and down the surface, he's actually feeling for this line that connects both of the panels together. And if they're even on both sides, for example, the middle finger is even on both sides, you'll know it's pretty straight. If you might have to adjust it here and there, that might be needed. But if you're dealing with a 15 by 15 like this, and you also don't have any slide out or any capabilities, and you might be limited, then in order for you to align your shirt, it's actually much more difficult. You're eyeballing as best as you can. You are going to be measuring as best as you can from each side. It can be doable, but it's just really not really quick for production's sake. And now once that's loaded, it is also very hard to check because my fingers are not that long, so I can't even use my fingers to guide. I'm kind of have to use half of my palm to kind of adjust from there. So that just leaves a little bit of room for some alignment issues. So again, we definitely recommend, if you have the opportunity, get a longer elongated heat press like this. Do not get the 12 by 10s that go across horizontally, or even the 16 by 20s that go across horizontally. No one really loads their shirt like that. So I would say stick with a heat press that is shaped like this, and the larger the better. Now when it also comes to alignment, we're gonna go ahead and show you guys some tools that we use. Now we're talking about aligning transfers. So let's say you have this t-shirt loaded up here. Now that the shirt's loaded, I'm gonna go ahead and use a clear alignment tool. You can pick this off of Amazon, but this helps you adjust because you can pretty much just lay the ruler down on the heat press. If you want the top seam to be about 4 inches from the neckline right here, this is your starting position. We mostly do our men's shirts at about 3.5 inches down. So that's the point that we want to use. So this helps you stay aligned that way. And now the next thing is you're going to be aligning your transfer. Now, one thing, this is the transfer that we're doing. It's a pretty big transfer. It takes up a majority of a heat press. It would barely fit into this heat press. What we're going to be doing is we're just going to be giving this a quick crease. We're going to be paying attention from the end of the artwork to the end of the artwork. This gives me a midpoint for that transfer. I'm going to use that midpoint on the ruler. I'm going to bring the design to that top of the ruler. And this is going to give me about 3 inches down. Now, if I want to also use my finger, I'm going to be using my finger on both ends, and I'm going to be adjusting it if I need to move it. But I'm basically going to be using either 3 fingers, 2 fingers, whatever finger it might be from the end of the artwork to align it. And this is how you get a good alignment. Now, another tool is to use your fingers. Now, generally speaking, about 4 fingers is going to be about 3 inches from the top of the neckline. So we use 4 fingers as a quick tool in case you want to adjust something, or you're doing a big run with multiple shirts like women's, kids, tank tops, different necklines that you need to adjust, and you don't want to adjust your laser or your alignment tool. Then you can just use your finger and kind of give it a good eyeball. So that's some of the tips that it comes to alignment. Next thing we're gonna talk about is checking your artwork before you're pressing. So you've ordered your transfers, you've got them in-house. Now, what are you looking at? Let's go ahead and take a look. We, of course, created several samples. We like to test our limitation, how small and how fine that we can print with actually being able to press still. So we are always doing vigorous testing. Now, you wanna make sure your DTF transfer is not only aligned right, where you see the design be perfectly hidden underneath the white. This shows us how thin we can actually print and still have adhesive on here. But keep in mind, if you are submitting artwork that is too thin, too small, it might be challenging and it might not be able to press. As you guys can see, there was not enough white here because it's just very detailed, and there's just not enough glue here. Now, if you go up to here, to the top, this is as close as we can get it. So this shows that this is the size of the neck tag, 1.5 inches with this particular font, and how fine we're able to capture this. And just like this, guys, you're able to see the chart of how fine that we are able to print. And again, this also matters on how aligned your current DTF supplier is. If they're not aligned, being able to print like this is not going to be beneficial because you will see some white in it. So if there is not enough white and you see black and you don't see any white behind the transfer, guys, it is most likely not going to adhere onto the fabric because there was not enough glue behind it. You might have to increase the stroke or the artwork so that you can capture more of the design. What it comes down to when it talks about the fine details. Now let's talk about gradients. People love gradient. It's the only way to capture a flame effect like this. But if you don't halftone this properly, gradients are not going to print properly with DTF. So this looks good. It has a black knockout effect to it, but as we turn it around, you guys can see there's some white dots that are primitive here that shows that the contract wasn't properly done because of the artwork. And as a result of this, you would get something that transfers like this. Still a very nice looking print, but this white cloudy halo smoke effect is not intentional. It's not supposed to be there, but it might work for your clientele. But we always want to tell our customers this is what you should expect if you guys are submitting gradient artwork to us. We do have several black knockout videos as well as half-toning videos that you guys can follow along. Make sure you guys check out those videos because it will help you achieve better looking gradient effects while using DTF. Topic of artwork, let's go ahead and take a look at this. DTF can print photorealism images like this, as you guys can see, super detailed, and it's almost like it's real. You're able to do this with DTF. Another thing that you're also able to do with DTF is fake embroidery effect. So this is actually not a real embroidery, it's just ran through artwork. And we do have a tutorial on this that covers how to create an artwork like this. So this is also something that you're able to print with DTF. Just keep in mind, going back to the alignment, when you're dealing with alignment, you want to make sure that it's within the realms of the t-shirt or the space. You don't want to go over any seams like this. It will have a difficult time adhering on there. And in order to achieve this, we also have a video, but you do need to use a heat press pillow so that this is nice and flat and that the seam doesn't mess with the corners right here. All right, the next thing we're gonna talk about is DTF troubleshooting. Now, these are some of the major problems or common problems that we run across, and I wanted to share with you guys first. Now, the first thing that we get asked, or not all the time, but color. Why is my color different from what I submitted to you guys? Well, guys, we print on CMYK format. A lot of customers print on RGB. They think that it's a lot brighter, but everything needs to get converted into CMYK, so your colors are going to be changing from printer to printer. We do our best to color calibrate, but again, with digital printing, it is very difficult to achieve the exact color. So in order for you to print with a color selection, you need to order our digital as well as physical color chart. From this chart, you're able to physically match the color that you want and get the CMYK value so that you can load it on your computer, save it to the same CMYK profile that we're using, which is our FOGRA 39, FOGRA 39 profile, and that will ensure that you're getting the exact color as we are. So there's definitely a two-step process when it comes to color matching. That's why it's not an easy task for a lot of people to do, but it's something achievable. We will have a link to that video in case you guys are interested in that. Now, another thing to keep in mind when it comes to color, why did the colors change from the transfer onto the fabric? Guys, it is very common that in this industry, there are fabrics out there that will dye migrate, especially safety oranges, bright colors. They will change color over time. It will bleed through the fabric and it will get absorbed through the transfer most of the time. So what about black powder? Guys, we've tested regular powder, we've tested black powder. It is a very, very minor thing that we've seen improve with the black powder. Most printers are not going to have a black powder option for you because their whole entire system will need to get ran in black powder. That just doesn't happen. A suggestion that we have is to use a better fabric. This is, for example, a tri-dry 100% polyester. Normally, you would maybe see this white turn to gray because of dye migration, but because this has a color block on there, it was able to preserve all the natural colors and there is no dye migration here. Lastly, the other tip that I have for you guys is to change garments. That garment that's dye migrating might not be the best garment out there. There are definitely options. Check a distributor near you. Alpha Broder, S&S, Sanmar, those are some distributors. Order some blanks from them and see if the color of choice that you're ordering has any dye migration, because that is probably the best solution for you guys to start with getting better fabric. Cold peel versus hot peel. What is better? What should you guys use? So guys, we've evolved many times over the last few years to get the perfect film for you guys. We used to start off with a cold peel, then a hot peel. Now our transfers can be peeled both hot and cold. Now there's definitely benefits when you're dealing with a transfer that can be peeled both hot and cold. It's faster when you're dealing with hot peels because you can peel instantaneous, but there's benefits of using a cold peel because you can use big items like a large canopy where it's a 10 by 10 and you're gonna have to do sections at a time. You're not gonna have to do it on a hot peel. You can wait for it to cool down and knock out that big project. Now, another thing that we've seen over the years is that cold peel transfers typically have better colors than hot peel because of the coating that's on that film. It's able to retain the colors a lot better. That's why we use a cold/hot peel transfer. So guys, there's no right or wrong way of doing the cold peel or hot peel. One of the major things, the last thing I want to mention with that is if you guys are doing thin objects or fine details that are wide or just little lettering, let it cool down. Let it be safe. Don't rush to peel. Let it completely dry, cool off before peeling. Now, if you're dealing with a full-size image like this, you can go ahead and hot peel. That will be a way to save time a lot quicker. But always test because that's the best way to go about it. So a main issue that people have is going to be pressure. Now that's something that we're not able to control because that is a knob that you guys have a setting with, or sometimes you guys might not even have that setting on your heat press. So make sure you're pressing on heavy pressure. A lot of times I've also seen heat presses that have a very flimsy knob, it will adjust over time. So make sure you guys are tightening it up before you guys are running a big project to ensure that you guys have enough pressure. Because as I showed you guys earlier, if you don't have enough pressure, you're gonna get premature wrinkling like this. So premature wrinkling that's happening on the t-shirt. Now another thing is if you're pressing onto your fabric and it's just coming off, or you're peeling the film and it's not coming off, again, that is more than likely going to be a pressure issue. I'm going to talk about how to calibrate that. So again, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey on majority of the heat presses. And another thing I want to point out is use a dollar bill test. A lot of times you're not sure how this is built, if it is flimsy or not. So you can use a piece of paper, you can use dollar bills. We use dollar bills because we just have them around. Half of the dollar bill on the t-shirt and then half of it hanging out. And then you're just using your press, heavy pressure, and you're just tugging at it. You're just making sure everything is nice and even. Let me do it again so I can test the back. Yep. You're just making sure that the dollar bills doesn't slip off. We've seen a lot of heat presses out there that doesn't have a really good system where the dollar bills will just slide out on certain areas. So make sure you guys are testing this. This is a big one for you guys. I've seen all the HTV runs just pull right out, so test it.